internet is a place filled with all types of entertainment, not just movies and shows, and I figured, you know what, the world is too broad, and with Hollywood drying up with their entertainment nowadays, I find that you can glean entertainment and enjoyment from almost everywhere and everything, and most of that is honestly loads more entertaining than what Hollywood is putting out. It's just the truth. And Twitter is one of those places, whether it's watching people crash out on Twitter over nonsense, like the recent video that I did, they delete their post? Hold on a minute. Okay, I know I'm so off track. Did they backtrack? Interesting. Okay, hold on. This is a new development that I did not know about. Interesting. Okay. Because like 23 hours at the time this video was posted, it says, we're not against PC gamers or the PC platform. We're not against modders and some of the fun mods they make, but we're 100% against, spicy mods, period. But that's not what they were saying before, right? Maybe I'm missing. And did they take off? I think they took off the post. Oh no. Hold on a minute. Oh, curiosity is killing me. Okay, so no, they didn't. It's still here, but you can see the post here. And they don't want anyone modding vulgar versions of their main character as well as other characters in the game when your main character is already, like I said in my video, people who are pearl clutchers may think that's vulgar to them. I mean, let's be serious. Look at the way that you dressed her. Nothing wrong with the way you dressed her, but I find it a bit hypocritical. And you're going on this big old thing about, oh my God, we don't want them tarnishing the reputation of our voice actresses, yada, 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 for the very minuscule, extremely infinitesimal amount of people who would be modding the game and modding it that way. But then you're then talking about you're not against PC gamers, the PC platform, but that's 100% how you came across in your original post. But anyway, there was that whole thing with that. And then you also find videos like these that become viral many months later for some reason. And at first glance watching this video, I'll let you see it, you can kind of understand in a video like this why a mother might run away when she sees a strange man approaching her. But there's just so much about this video that's weird.
Knock on the doorbell. Ring doorbell. We need you. What's going on?
Do you live here?
Yeah.
You do?
Papa.
I don't believe that.
Call me crazy, but if you're gonna ask someone if they live here, then why would you not accept the answer that they give you? If you already don't believe that they live here, why bother asking? Nothing that they tell you is gonna convince you otherwise. So now you're just wasting your time and possibly this person's time.
What?
I don't believe that.
So what are you doing?
Rory, come on. Rory, come on.
Hey.
Did someone come here?
Wow. Look, at first glance, I wouldn't even blame this woman because, first of all, I know this is like really weird and I'm not about victim blaming certain people. I mean, there are certain decisions that people make where they end up in situations because they put themselves in those situations. However, we learn that she's out here at basically midnight or late at night with her 2 kids. I'm sorry, but if you're in that situation, we're already at a disadvantage. Why would you be walking your 2 small children with you out at midnight alone? Maybe it's because she feels safe. Sure, why not? But even when it comes to my dogs, unless I know I have my firearm on me, which I always do now, before when I was living with my parents, I'm not walking with my little dog out in the middle of the night because I know suburbia is one of those places where coyotes feel emboldened enough to come and try and snatch your dog. And I didn't want to put my baby in harm's way. Even if your neighborhood is safe, you still have rabid animals that can come up and tend to be more active around these times. So it just seemed very weird. But then she probably wasn't expecting it, right?
My wife, she got somebody chased her up here, and she had the kids.
Who chased her?
She said somebody in a silver
There was a guy
truck.
in a gray truck, and he came
So
around
she-
the corner,
I don't know if you guys have a
and I was in
video.
the street, and so I come up, and I just have my kids, and so I'm like gonna pretend that I'm coming home, and so I pull up and I start walking to your back gate, and he stops here and he goes, "Are you looking for someone?" And I said, "Nope." And then he sat here, and I was like, "I need to get in."
Well, that's my husband. That's why he lives here. Yeah. He lives here, so he came in and he said there's a lady screaming, and I'm like, that's...
She got all worried that some.
Scared the crap out of me.
How?
I'm sorry.
How did he scare you, though?
I had a feel.
I just seen her in the driveway and I was like, are you looking for somebody? Because I was pulling up out.
And I saw someone walking in our driveway, too, and I'm like, why is someone walking in our driveway?
Well, I'm sorry.
So she's in their driveway and yet is asking him if he lives here, and he says yes, and she says she doesn't believe him and then instantly calls the police. Look, I get it, but we could all chalk this up to a simple misunderstanding, and it might have had nothing to do with the fact that this person is dark-skinned. Could have just been that he was just a man in an SUV slowing down, and she had her kids and she was in mom mode, and she was confused until her video came out. Now, she does apologize, and this whole thing's very awkward, and I can imagine very embarrassing, especially for her husband. But then we get her side of the story.
Everybody here on Facebook. I'll give it a quick second for any of you guys that want to jump on. But I just want to come on here and address what's going around right now, because it's pretty messy. Yeah, I think there's a massive misunderstanding. And now I believe that there is an agenda that's being pushed, and my heart is crushed. So, waiting for you guys to pop on.
So you messed up. Okay, now there is an agenda being pushed. She goes there trying to garner people's sympathy when she just had to admit that she kind of jumped the gun a little bit with her neighbors. First of all, if you are going to bother having neighbors in a neighborhood like this, which I'm pretty sure, I'm not sure, but I can almost guarantee that there's an HOA and stuff. Doesn't it behoove you to know who lives in your neighborhood? Like, what's the point of having neighbors? You're not going to even see your neighbors. I mean, like, in a rural place where I live, we live on, like, 20-something acres, and I still know all my neighbors around me. Like, I know all their dogs, so we've introduced ourselves to each other when we moved in. They're saying, hey, if you see dogs like this is my dog down the street, this is my mother's dog, this is my son's dog. We know each other. I know all of my neighbors in the immediate area. So how are you in a gated community and don't know who your neighbors are?
He says, this is my house. And I said, I don't think that it is. And at that point, the only reason that I said that was because truly the awkward encounter of slowing up behind me, talking to us multiple times. I'm in this frantic state. It's late at night. I got my kids, my 2 babies. The lady at the door is not answering.
Again, why are you out late at night with your 2 children? I mean, I get it. Like, I probably am the biggest hypocrite talking about this. I like to go out late at night, right? Like, that's always something I have done, because it's peaceful out at night. You can see all the stars, and I just think it's really peaceful. I like the nighttime. I'm kind of nocturnal in that I prefer to be out when there's less activity. I don't like taking my dogs with me because I don't want them to be put in any danger. If something happens, I want to be able to run up, or rather run away from the situation. I'm armed, so I wouldn't want to be in a situation where I'd have to defend myself in that manner. But if I am in that situation, all I have to worry about is me. I don't have to worry about putting my babies in danger. My dogs are basically my babies. And even still, now as a married woman, doesn't matter what you people feel, I'm not what you would call a single entity anymore that has no accountability to anyone. My husband doesn't feel comfortable with me going out at night alone. As he said, I am his wife. And if he's not there to protect me or what have you, or something happens to me and he can't get to me, he just doesn't feel comfortable. There's things that he has chosen to sacrifice for our relationships, and that's one of the things I had to sacrifice for my relationships, because it doesn't make sense. Like, why would you stupidly go out 3 o'clock in the morning and put yourself in danger because you want to walk in the park or walk around the neighborhood? It doesn't matter how safe our area is. For every safe area, there's always going to be one person that decides to get rabies that day, or maybe they don't decide, but that can happen. And why unnecessarily put yourself in danger? Now, I disagree to a point, but I also understand where he's coming from, and to make him feel more comfortable, I wouldn't put myself in that situation, also in a situation where I would make him worry. So again, why would you be out late at night if you're already in a frantic state, or you're this reactionary over something? Why go out late at night with your children? That just doesn't make any sense. Well, you're 2 young children. You have to be running. You can't even hold the other one. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe that's the only time that she has to spend time with them. I just feel like you can't really see as well as you do in the daytime. So I feel like your ability to substantially protect your children decreases drastically at nighttime. Just saying.
I got my kids, my 2 babies. The lady at the door is not answering. There's no other homes that are well established. I mean, there's construction. It's a corner house. I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, I'm on the front porch. This truck literally is halfway up the driveway. And I was like, my radar was like, nope, I don't think that this is your house. And so I said, I don't believe that this is your house. And so I'm starting to unbuckle Cash, and I grab and I freak. I go, Rory, run. And so I take off the porch and I literally run as fast as I can, screaming at the top of my lung. I'm getting all these messages, I'm so sorry. Screaming at the top of my lung. I've never, ever, ever screamed the way that I screamed. And I'm running through the front yards of everybody, praying that the Ring doorbell would capture us. Finally, to get to a woman's house, I'm bang on the door. And at this point, I'm dialing 911, and I said, can I please come in? And the woman said, yes, come in. And so I'm standing there, I'm talking to the sheriff, and more than anything, I was not looking for him to come to my rescue at this point. My husband was going to come. I'm in this woman's house. The door is closed. And I tell the man, he said, do I need to come out? And I just said, no. I said, I was just calling to let you know that this just happened.
So if you don't need the sheriff to come to you, why are you calling him? I mean, if you're calling to inform the sheriff that this just happened, what do you expect him to do if not come out? If I'm at the point where I have to call the police, I'm expecting the police to get their ass down here. Like, doesn't make any sense. I call the police, but I don't actually want them to do anything. I just want to let them know. That's giving the kind of person that calls the police for every single thing. Someone's planting a carrot in the back of their garden. She's calling the police. I think they're planting cocaina in their backyard. Like, there's just some people like that. I'm not saying she's the kind of person like that, but those are totally the vibes that she's giving. And you know what? As I said, we could chalk this up to a misunderstanding until you hear her speak more. The more she speaks, the more delusional she seems. Understandably, mothers are supposed to be protective of their kids. I get it, but you start to see little cracks in the personality here, and it kind of feels like one of those neighbors, which is why I'm so glad I don't have like actual close neighbors anymore, that would just be nosy and reactionary about every single thing. Oh my God, there's a man outside and he's bringing in a package. It must be a dead body. Like, there's just people like that are just so high strung and haven't taken their Xanax in like months that everybody around them is going to be some kind of enemy. And again, as a mother, you should know who your neighbors are. If anything, because there's so many predators around now, know who your neighbors are. Get to know your neighbors, especially if you're living in a neighborhood when you're like on top of each other. I would think that was important. When I lived in a gated community with my parents, we knew who everyone was. So if someone didn't live there, we knew for certain that person didn't live there. And even still, we're not going to be like, hey, do you live here? Like, unless the person is doing something really, really shady. The person's actively talking to you and asking you questions like, hey, are you okay? Like, what's going on? And your first thing is, let me call the police. What if that had been the sheriff? That would have been so awkward.
My husband was going to come. I'm in this woman's house. The door is closed. And I tell the man, and he said, do I need to come out? And I just said, no. I said, I was just calling to let you know that this just happened. My husband's going to come get me. And, he says, he asked me if I want him to come out, and I said no. And so the woman then, I was at her house, she literally asked me and said, she said, I don't know how to ask this. She goes, but was it a black man? Because she goes, it's a black family that lives there. And I said, no, I believe that this is a white man. He was a white man in a truck. A young white man is what I said. And she said, okay. She goes, because that's a black family that lives there. And I said, no, I don't think that it was a black man.
I'm sorry. I'm just calling bullshit on this. I think I could be wrong. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. But I feel like because of the backlash, she feels like she needs to say that so she doesn't look racist. Just what I'm picking up. She's like, no. It's a white man. I don't know if other people corroborate her story, then probably. But I have a feeling that if she realizes that she messed up, she could be telling people that just because she doesn't want to look like she's racist. But I could be wrong. That I could be way off. Maybe she legitimately thought.
Porch, and she said something along the lines like, did you forget something or did you leave something? And John laughs and he's like, yes, we did. I'm so sorry. And I get out of the car and I walk up to the woman, and I could not tell her fast enough what had happened. Like she walks out on the porch, and I jump out of the car, and I said, I said, oh my gosh, yes, there was a man, and John was the one that said, a man was following her, chasing her, following her is what I said. I use the word chasing, following me. And, so she said, I jumped out of the car and I said, I'm so sorry. I said, literally, I was pretending that your house was my house. I was walking up the driveway, and then I was like turning in. I was pretending that it was yours. And she goes, yeah, that was my husband. And so he ends up coming out, and he's like, I told you this was my house. And at that point, I literally started, I said, I'm so sorry. I said, I am so sorry. And I told him, I said, sorry. I said, I'm so sorry. And then, I said, this is your house. That was my words. I said, I'm so sorry. I said, this is your house. I said, I truly kept thinking, like, maybe this is his house. Maybe this is his house. And he says, well, I told you this was your house. And I said, you have to understand. I said, I'm so sorry. I said, it was such an awkward encounter. I said, the truck was like starting to slow behind me, and I'm out here with my little girl and my son, and I said, I'm a mom, and it was dark. And he said, but I told you that this was my house. He says, I was driving slow because I was looking at my Christmas lights. And once again, I said, I am so sorry.
You know, I would be so filled with shame, I would pack up and move. I couldn't stay there. I would be so embarrassed. Because now all the neighbors are going to look at you like, is she going to call the police on us next? You know how embarrassing that is? Like, it's not even the issue of her feeling protective over her kids. That's understandable. But there were so many other better ways you could have dealt with this. Like, I get it. Especially if you live in a state, I don't know what state she lives in, but I could understand the bone-crippling fear. If you live in a state where criminals are released all the time and nobody does anything about it, I kind of get it. But at that point, why even bother call the police? But I feel like a better way to handle this would have been go and decide. If you feel like you're in total fear, understandable. Grab your kids, run inside the neighbor's house. Hey, do you know that man right there? Or let the other neighbors know. Even though that's still embarrassing, don't waste the policeman's time. Ask the other neighbors if they know the person, or ask what the guy's name is. You know, like, do you live here? What's your name? Such and such, or whatever, and have him tell. I'm sure he would tell you. As uncomfortable it must be for him as well, he would tell you. Or you could ask the other neighbors to corroborate this, which her husband and the other neighbor tried to tell her, but she wasn't even listening.
Once again, I said, I am so sorry. And they truly, they did not take my apology.
Why would they? Like, you called the cops on them. You handled that very, very poorly. So I can kind of understand, even from her perspective, she thought she was doing the right thing. Sure, why not? Little bit crazy, but okay. But I can understand now why you have bad faith with those neighbors. And you need to kiss in between their cheeks every single day that you're living there, because you will never live that down. Now, every other neighbor is going to be looking at you. And because they're a black family, now they're going to be looking at you like, oh my gosh, she's a racist. Even if that has nothing to do with it, it's going to seem like that. Because the first thing you did was ask some dude, whether you thought he was white or black, hey, do you live here? And then when he says, yes, I do live here, you don't even try to corroborate it. You just run away and then start calling the police like that. It's a tad bit extreme. Even if you could understand in today's climate why that would be the case with so many people being let free on the streets, I get it, but it doesn't make it any less awkward and doesn't make the situation any better. If someone is telling me they live here, I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm sorry, and I would walk away, get out of the situation, be like, all right, let me go. I get it that things can turn sour really quickly. You don't know if the person who you deem to be a criminal is carrying. You have no way of knowing, so that's understandable. But the whole other variables surrounding this whole thing, with her being out late with her kids at night, not knowing her neighbors, that could happen to anyone. I get it. But then people are trying to tell her, yeah, this is a family that lives here, and her being like, no, but I don't think so. I think it's like a white person or something. That's what her brain was telling her. It's just a very awkward situation, and I think it blew up in her face because she reacted a little bit outlandishly. But then it's a catch-22, because let's say she didn't react that way, not the safe and sorry, and then she did end up getting kidnapped or something happened to her and her kids. Then they probably would have said, well, she didn't react fast enough, or only If only she had been more skeptical. So she was being a mother. I get it. Still, if you're living in a neighborhood like that, get to know the people who live there. Introduce yourselves so you don't run into these problems, because it's very embarrassing and very uncomfortable for both parties.
So if you guys saw on Instagram, I shared the story twice. The only reason that I shared the story is because I was heartbroken and it was a really scary night. I've always shared everything on Instagram. And so that night after that whole instance happened, I literally was sitting on the steps first of all, and John kept trying to talk to me. I kept telling him I was so sorry, and I've never, just the panic. I literally could not come down from this fight or flight. From the time that I was at the woman's house to literally 30 seconds later, telling the woman that I was just followed, to the man stepping out on the front porch and it being his house. It was all of these different emotions. And so I'm sitting at home, literally having this meltdown. And I kept telling John I was so sorry. I felt really stupid. And, so on the way home, I forgot to say that the cop was driving around our neighborhood, and, I'm getting all these messages. I'm so sorry. The cop was driving around our neighborhood, and I stopped him. We stopped him, and I jumped over, rolled the window down, and I said, I am so sorry. I said, I'm so sorry. I said, it was his house. It was a misunderstanding. I'm so sorry. He was like, it's okay. I'm glad everything's fine. I was like, yes, it's fine. And so I ended up, we went home. And, that night when I got home, I had tears, and I was making a cup of coffee. And if you guys know me, I put everything on Instagram. I talk all the time.
Not to be that person, but maybe that's part of your problem.
Put everything on Instagram. I talk all the time. It was an innocent mistake. I felt really stupid. I absolutely was crushed I felt like they thought I was stupid. I already felt stupid. I truly felt stupid. Like I said to them on the porch, I kept thinking maybe this is his house. And then I'm running and screaming at the top of my lungs. And so yeah, I felt dumb for sure. So I went on Instagram, in my story, I still have it archived, and I have tears, and I'm making a cup of coffee. And I said, I was like, man, you talk about a night. I'm like, man, my night just completely took a left turn.
You were okay. You call the cops on your neighbors and accuse them of doing something they didn't do. It wasn't just your night that took a turn. You've now not only completely messed up their night, but now you've made them completely uncomfortable staying there, because they probably now think that you're prejudiced against them, or they have to worry about that crazy woman as their neighbor accusing them of being something that they're not. Now, it was a simple misunderstanding, but imagine if you're a guy, especially for men, I get it. There's bad men out there, there's bad women out there. But imagine you're a guy who you worked your ass off to make sure your family is taken care of, and you buy them this nice house, it's a nice neighborhood, you make sure they're safe, and then while you were driving, this doesn't happen to anybody else in your neighborhood, but while you were driving, you just happen to look different than everybody that lives there, and you're pulling up to your own driveway. Maybe your wife put up the Christmas lights and she turned them on, and you're like, wow, maybe you had a hard day at work, and you come home and you see that and you feel your Christmas spirit. And then there's this woman who's on your driveway, on your property. You don't know what the hell's going on, and so she looks she's on your property. You don't know her, so you're like, ma'am, are you okay? Can I help you? Is everything all right? And she's like, do you live here? And you're like, yeah, are you okay? And she's like, I don't believe that you live here. Yeah, I don't believe that. And then she starts running and then calling the cops on you. And now you have to deal. Can you imagine, from that person's point of view, who do you think has the worst night? Because that woman and her babies are now safe. Now that my heart is clear. It's a complete misunderstanding. But the man who was accused, do you think he now feels better? Do you think he's now clutching his chest saying in relief, wow, thank goodness that was just a misunderstanding? No, it's still going to feel very awful and awkward. Now you've made it so now that those neighbors don't feel safe.
Super scary. I was like, I'll have to fill you guys in later. So I went live that night. And then I went live again the next morning. And I have to tell you guys, I have been on social media long enough to know that there's a lot of scrutiny. And so by me going live, I was not I was very, I did not think that I was doing anything wrong. I was sharing the story of what I happened, better safe than sorry, how scary it was, just what I went through. Like, that's the only reason that I went live. At the end, I talked about how I felt stupid and how this couple, like twice I apologized and nothing came of it. And so, yeah, that crushed me. I did feel really stupid. So that is the story of that night. Many of you guys were on those lives, and so you guys know the exact emotions and state that I was in. So we are here. And it wasn't until about 2 weeks ago, maybe a little less than that John was sitting in the living room, and he called me the day prior, and he asked me a question about, did you ever say, like, he said, did you tell the woman that he was black? And I said, no, I told her that I thought he was a young white man. He's like, I thought so. And I was like, that was really weird that he called and asked me that. So the next morning, I was doing my morning reading, and he sits down in front of me, and he's like, we have to talk. And so he told me that there had been a letter floating around our neighborhood that had been posted in our mailroom that had said something about a racist profiling in the neighborhood. And so, of course, you throw racism into the mix, it gets really yucky. And that was the furthest thing from what it was, to the point of literally, we have a handwritten letter from the woman's house that I went to. I'm trying to get the Ring doorbell footage of me standing on the porch telling John when he asked, are you sure it wasn't a black man? And I said, I think it is a young white man. But she wrote a letter. She was like, I'm happy to speak on your behalf. You absolutely told me that you thought it was a white man. And so we had 2 days in a row, the letter was posted in the mailroom saying that there was a racist profiling, not mentioning our name, but it was in reference to that night. It was taken down 2 times. Followed 20 minutes home, and my car was broken into when I was at the store. And when I was a little girl, we had a man banging on our door and helicopters hovering over our home. So,
okay. Wow. This woman clearly needs therapy. I don't know how it got to the point where she started making everything about her. I get it that she feels stupid, but you can understand how to the rest of the internet it could come across as very self-centered. You went through something, cried your crocodile tears, and now you want internet sympathy. It doesn't seem like you care much about how much discomfort you brought to your actual neighbors. Regardless of whether they were white, black, or Korean, you still made them incredibly uncomfortable and brought a lot of stress into their lives. I get that some of this probably stems from childhood trauma, but if it's affecting you to the point where you can't function around people or you overreact in certain situations, it might be worth considering a class on how to read body language. Now, I know some people might think, okay, you know what, Alteori, you're being kind of unfair.
I was a little girl, we had a man banging on our door and helicopters hovering over our home. So, did I overreact? Yeah, maybe a little bit. But I showed up at the door and I said that I was sorry 2 times.
They might say, it could happen to any of us. We could think something is safe, take a chance, and end up in a Mr. Ballin video. But that's why I say it again. Get to know your neighborhood. Get to know your neighbors so situations like this don't happen. Try to be as prepared as possible, because especially if you have little children, it's important to make sure the adults around you are identifiable. I can never say that word. Are identifiable. You don't want someone to come to your house or near your children and you have no idea who they are, like just on principle. When I lived with my parents in a gated community, and even in my uncle's neighborhood, he lives in a gated community as well. Everyone knew everyone. There are only so many houses, and with an HOA, some neighbors are on the board, so they all know each other. Introduce yourselves. Even if you don't get along with everyone, you don't have to be buddy-buddy, but at least you know who they are. If you see a certain car or face, hey, I know that's Eric from down the street, or that's Brett from next door, or Jennifer from the next lane over. That's so-and-so's kids. We know which families live where. Also, if you're always trained to see everything as a threat, a simple exchange from a man will feel like some kind of monstrous attack. You'll see this with people who are terminally online. They don't know how to socialize with people. So when a very innocent situation comes up in real life, they don't know how to recognize it. They live in a little bubble with their close friends, so anyone outside of that, they just don't know how to interact with. I don't know much about this person, but she gives off the vibe of a wine mom, maybe a stay-at-home mom whose husband works and she only hangs out with other wives or talks with them online. I'm just guessing based on how she acts. Sorry if I'm wrong, but it feels like she's sheltered and doesn't know how to socialize outside of her bubble, and everything's supposed to be about her and her victim status. From what I gathered in the video, she took a simple interaction and blew it way out of proportion, which she does admit. But would she admit it if she wasn't getting all the backlash online? I don't know. But I get that the fear was very real for her, but the preparation she could have done ahead of time or how she could have handled it at the moment could have been better. There was actually a time, like something similar that happened to me when I was living in my parents' neighborhood. And I was walking around my neighborhood at night. I'm a small girl, so of course one of my neighbors stopped to ask me if everything was okay. I said, yeah, everything's fine, thanks for asking. He introduced himself and said where he lived and pointed like up the few houses, like I think it was 3 houses up on the left, and said, hey, I live over there, I'm such and such. I said, oh, I recognize you. I see you every day when you leave for work. It was a really cold day or night. It was like 16, 12 degrees, and I had a book bag on, so I guess he assumed I was walking home. He offered to drive me to my driveway if I was comfortable with that. I said, no, I'm actually exercising. I have weights in my book bag, but thank you so much for offering. He said, okay, well, have a wonderful night. And I wished him the same. We said a little bit of something else. We laughed, whatever. He went on his way. Now, if I thought he was a complete stranger, I obviously wouldn't have gotten in his car regardless, but I was able to read the situation. I also had an exit strategy if absolutely necessary. I always made sure I was on the right side of the car, so if he decided to lose control of the vehicle or something happened, he wouldn't be able to run me over, you know, or something like that. So I also knew I could cut through the neighbor's lawn if I needed to. I mean, of course, if he had a gun and he decided to go pop, pop, I'm dead anyway. But more importantly, I already knew who the guy was. I'm not saying that neighbors can't be serial killers, but it helps to know who's around. It also helps if you're not stuck with 2 kids hanging off you in the middle of the freaking night, unable to defend yourself or them. What an awkward situation.
I said that I was sorry 2 times. People are going as far as saying they're not genuine apologies, that I'm out to get them for whatever reason.
And you can see from the comments, people started losing their minds when she started crying. Like, why are you crying? They're the ones who should be crying. Why are you crying? This is classical woman trying to make everything about you situation. Nobody came out and did anything to you. I can understand if someone came out and did something to you, but you're the one who actively did something to them. Yes, it was a misunderstanding and that's unfortunate, but now the ball is in your court. You have now upended their lives. Well, not really upended, but yes, you've made things drastically uncomfortable for them. You shouldn't be on here crying. You should be off of the internet, going out there and trying to do everything that you can to make their lives easier and to show that you're sorry. I apologized 2 times. Okay, apologies don't mean shit. You call the cops on them. This guy who worked his ass off for his house, and you're telling me he doesn't live there, and then you call the cops on him. I'm sorry, but what the fuck are 2 apologies supposed to do for him right now? That's why it doesn't seem genuine, because you're not doing anything. Do something for them. Show them that you're sorry. Anybody can say, I'm sorry, and not mean it. That's why people are dogging you right now. Like I said, if that were me, I'd be like, listen, I don't have the money, but let me pay your mortgage for 3 months. Like, that's the least I could do. Let me watch your kids, or, well, maybe they wouldn't want their kids around her, but let me do so. Let me cook for you. No, they probably wouldn't trust her because they think they'd probably poison them. Let me cut your lawn for you. Let me cut your lawn. Anything that you're spending money on, anything financial, let me help you, because things are hard out here. I am so sorry, you know, or making I got it. Instead of just making all these videos back to back explaining why you feel this way and why it's about you and woe is me, why don't you go on the internet and be like, dude, the neighbors, you know, such and such, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. And stop making videos about, well, I was scared and, you know, I did this and I get it. You made a video about that, but you're making them back to back now, and you're putting all these crocodile tears to make people try and feel sorry for you when you're the one who fucked up. Why are you crying? They should be crying. Not only the man, but you call the cops on these kids' father, and I'm sorry, if some random woman did that to my husband, I would be fucking livid. Of course I wouldn't accept your fucking apology. I'm sorry. I would not. And it would take a long time. Like, I would still never trust you, but the least you could do is try to make up for what you did to us. Like, why should we have to pay for your schisms and for your fears? We all live in this gated community. We all live in the safe neighborhood for a reason. And usually when they live in these kind of gated communities, they vet the people that live there. Now, granted, she didn't know that he lived there, sure. And people lie and they make it worse for everybody else. I get that. But yes, your overreaction has cost the trust of these people and also the trust of the other neighbors towards you. You would have to go bend over backwards to try and assuage them, and crying your crocodile tears on the internet and making yourself out to be the victim you want so badly to be is not really doing anything for you or these people. Just saying. Anyway, that was weird. But what do you guys think? You think the internet's being too harsh? Or do you think that she deserved what she got? You know, do you think we're being mean and we should understand, you know, she didn't know she was a poor mom and didn't know what she was doing, or she was just doing the best she could for her kids and it's better safe than sorry? What do you think?